More and more of us are renting our accommodation from a landlord, but unsuspecting tenants have found themselves evicted. Why? For complaining to their landlord about bad conditions or asking them for repairs.
This is the debate on revenge evictions. By the end of last year, it had reached Parliament. But just as the law looks set to change, two MPs caused a national outcry by standing in the way.
By definition, all landlords are rogues because they don't have to conform to a set code of behaviours.
Because they got such a weak case, they invented a load of made-up figures in order to try and pretend that this problem was bigger than it actually is.
There's actually been people who've been electrocuted and died as a result of living in a private rented home where the electrics haven't been checked for years.
As so often happens in this situation, they're always looking for scapegoats, and I happen to be identified as one of the scapegoats.
In this film, we speak to those at the heart of this debate, and we ask what should be done to tackle revenge evictions.
At the end of the First World War, 3/4 of households in England rented from a landlord. But by the end of the century, that was turned on its head. Home ownership was now the ideal and became increasingly accessible to a cross-section of society. However, lately times have been tough, especially for young people looking to get a foot on the property ladder. A lack of affordable housing, an economic downturn, and a booming population have once again seen the rented sector grow.
The last census showed 35% of the population rented their home, and campaigners predict that number will rise sharply, so that by 2021, renters will outnumber homeowners in 104 parliamentary constituencies. Nearly 50 of those are in London. And as more and more of us are renting, figures released by the homeless charity Shelter are worrying. They suggest that in the last year alone, 200,000 people were evicted after asking for essential repairs. Richard Kay claims he was the victim of a revenge eviction just 2 weeks after moving in.
So we just moved into this flat. We counted about 20 separate faults. These were things like no hot water, leaking showers, all things that you would expect to be working in a property once you'd moved in. And we were paying a premium to live there. 2 weeks after we'd moved in, we're all eating dinner. It was about 8 in the evening, and the washing machine starts smoking, and we hear this bang, and these thick black clouds start billowing out from behind it, and we're like, oh my God, what's happening? Right, let's call the fire brigade. Let's call the landlord. The landlord said, right, don't call the fire brigade. I don't want to be called either. Why are you calling me? I'm going to come around tomorrow, and on the basis of my assumption, I think it's your fault. You're going to have to replace this machine.
Richard's case is one of a number that have led policy campaigners like Seb Clear to argue that things have to change.
Well, we know in the last year that up to 200,000 people faced revenge evictions just because they complained about poor conditions in their home. In the worst case scenario, that's actually seen people die because there hasn't been the flat kept up in the proper manner. I mean, there's a big problem around kind of electrics in this country, because while you have mandatory annual gas safety inspections for the private rented sector, there's nothing similar for electrics in a home. So there's actually been people who've been electrocuted and died as a result of living in a private rented home where the electrics haven't been checked for years. The landlord hasn't bothered to keep the wiring up to scratch. And it's actually, in the worst cases, led to fatalities.
Eventually, it was proposed that the law should be changed. The Tenancies Reform Bill was an attempt in Parliament to do just that. Supporters claim the idea was to stop rogue landlords evicting tenants who'd recently complained about bad conditions. Currently under a Section 21 notice, a landlord need offer no justification for an eviction.
But by the end of the debate, the proposals were effectively dead and buried. The nail in the coffin came from two MPs who used a controversial tactic. They talked for as long as they could to stop the bill progressing, and in so doing, caused an outcry from supporters.
Because we'd have it believed that people left, right and centre are being asked to leave because of some kind of retaliatory eviction. And that just simply is not the case, Madam Deputy Speaker.
What this shows is that the bill does not have the massive, overwhelming support that its promoters say it has. Because
I've travelled to Westminster to meet with the two MPs who stood against the proposals. I want to hear their side and get their take on accusations of political dirty tricks.
Well, first of all, there weren't enough people in the House to support it. That was why it didn't make any progress. Secondly, it was ill-conceived, not thought through, and it became apparent during the course of the debate that even the sponsor wasn't quite sure of the full implications of it. They misjudged the whole situation because they had a whole day between 9:30 and 2:30 for this bill to be debated. They took up an enormous amount of the time themselves. The fault, insofar as there is any fault, lies with them. And as so often happens in this situation, they're always looking for scapegoats, and I happen to be identified as one of the scapegoats.
Philip Davis is renowned for his long speeches,
Member has been speaking for nearly an hour.
a reputation he's cemented in joining Christopher Chope and putting up a fierce resistance to changing the law.
Clear.
Well, your position's clear, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wasn't sure the Chair had positions, but your position is clear.
Order! Sit down, Mr Davis. That is an outrageous challenge to the Chair. Your speech is now finished. I call...
But Philip Davis has fiercely defended his position, questioning the scale of the problem.
I'm not entirely sure which bit of the English Housing Survey shelter we're looking at, but there is nothing in there that suggests that there are 200,000 tenants a year who face revenge evictions. They made up the figure. You will always have situations which are regrettable, situations you wouldn't like to see occur. The problem is, would the legislation that's proposed make the situation better, or would it make it worse? And the judgment that everybody else who's come to when they've looked at this is it would make the situation worse. It would make fewer properties be available for rent, which would push up prices for tenants and actually have lots of unintended consequences.
But there could yet be a twist in this tale. A bill making its journey through the House of Lords might yet see the law change to tackle revenge evictions. How that will play out, well, it's hard to say. But one thing is for certain, and that is as the number of people renting is predicted to rise sharply in the years to come, this is set to become an ever more heated debate.